Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Keely Ogden, I'm a writer, and I am the Vampire Girl. For the past few videos, we've been looking at how religion, specifically Christianity, plays into vampire myth and media. Today, we have one of my favorite examples. Castlevania takes medieval Christianity and reminds us of why we call those times the Dark Ages. Since this is my first TV show review, this is how it's going to go down. I will give you a bit of background about the show, a brief overall summary of the plot, as well as a smattering of my thoughts, a content warning, a rating out of 5, then I'll say whether or not I'll continue the show. I will then give a more in-depth look at Season 1, breaking down the plot, my favorite characters, and talking about how the church and Christianity ties into this first season. Quick warning, I will be switching between saying Castlevania and Castlevania throughout the review. I'm not sure which is correct, so here is my apology in advance. Castlevania is a Netflix-produced show based on the video game series by Konami. Season 1 was released in 2017, with the second season following closely in 2018, Season 3 coming out in 2020, and Season 4 being released earlier this month. Castlevania was written by Warren Ellis and stars Richard Armitage, James Calais, Alejandro Reynoso, Graham McTavish, Matt Frewer, and Emily Swallow. Castlevania is classified as a dark fantasy horror, and it comes chock full of so much blood. So much. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. In Wallachia in the late 1400s, local religious leaders make a big oopsie-doozy and awaken the fury of Vlad Dracula Tepesh. Dracula summons an army of darkness to sweep through Wallachia and destroy all of humanity. The fate of the world rests on a beer-soaked trust fund kid, a damper with daddy issues, and a sorceress who will surpass all of your previous Woman Crush Wednesdays. This show is seriously intense, but it's also hilarious. The characters and the dialogue of this show is just fantastic. It makes me laugh at times when I probably shouldn't be laughing. And I'll tell you one of my favorite instances in the spoilery section. I shouldn't have laughed, but I laugh every time I watch this show. Oh. I also really love our main cast of characters. I'm not usually a big fan of the reluctant hero trope, but Castlevania does it right. Trevor Belmont is a character that we initially are unsure about, but the more time we spend with him, the more we see what a powerful fighter and a truly good person that he is, as much as he'll deny it himself. There is a heart beating inside that broad, brawny, muscled chest of his. Dracula is also a villain done right. Do we agree with what he's doing? Well, okay, a little bit. Just a little bit. They had it coming. I mean, come on. You see the show. They had it coming a little bit. But no. But do we understand where he's coming from? Yes. The church plays a big part into this first season of the show. Castlevania does a really great job at showing us what can happen if people just blindly follow what they're told to believe, and it also shows us what power true faith really has. Going on back, if you saw my Vampires and Christianity video, I talked a lot about faith-based magic, and that has a lot of sway in this season. It's a little blink and you'll miss it at times, but it comes through nonetheless, and I'll go a little more into depth on that when we hit the analysis portion. I love this show. I think it is a great mixed bag of violent, bloody, gutsy, vampire action and comedy, well-written characters. It's just a good time. So, Castlevania Season 1 gets a score of 5 out of 5. Content warnings! This show is bloody. It is gutsy. There is evisceration, decapitation, incineration, and all other kinds of bloody good isserations that you can come up with. If you can think it, this show has it. And no one is spared from the fury of Dracula. No one. Demographics do not exist. Hell beasts will eat anything and anybody. So keep that in mind. There is also adult language in this show. Trevor himself is a very dirty-mouthed boy, but he's been through a lot, so I can't really blame him. All in all, if you're squeamish around evisceration, maybe skip this one. It's not for everybody. Now, will I finish this series? Probably eventually. I've already seen through season 2. Like I said, it has a darker tone, and that kind of got to me a little bit in season 2. I'm a little nerviosa for seasons 3 and 4. I haven't seen them yet, so no season 3 and 4 spoilers in the comments. I will cry, and it will be embarrassing for both of us. But I love these characters, so eventually I will finish the series, and I encourage you to at least give it a shot. Alright, spoiler-free people, this is your cue to GTFO, and go check out Castlevania with all of the caveats that I mentioned. If you want to stick around and hear my thoughts on season 1, let's get into it. 3, 2, 1, go! Episode 1 of Castlevania, we are introduced to Lisa. Lisa is a young woman, she wants to be a doctor, and she's not easily intimidated. In fact, she is more than willing to walk past rows of piked bodies up to this gigantic castle where the devil himself seems to live. Not only that, she's willing to knock on the door and then just invite herself inside. Lisa is there looking for Dracula. She knows that he has a lot of scientific knowledge and she wants him to teach her. Dracula is a little shook that this woman was just willing to walk into his house and doesn't seem to be intimidated by him at all. Dracula has never really met a person with such a progressive thinking mind before. Everyone is, well, stuck in the Dark Ages. Lisa tells him that everybody outside already thinks she's a witch, so like, why not associate with a vampire? I mean, that's just the next logical step. Drac is also impressed and a little turned on by this very pretty young woman, and he agrees to teach her. Lisa tells Drac that not all people are like that anymore. Things are changing, and she is going to show him that if he'll show her how to work the sciencey magic stuff. Cut to 20 years later, and it turns out that people weren't as kind as Lisa would have thought. In fact, they're so unkind that they burn her at the stake as a witch. I mean, they just asking to die. They're just asking to have hellfire brought upon them. I mean, you think this woman is married to the devil himself and you gonna kill her? Y'all asking for it. The head bishop of the church in this city, Targoviste, is convinced that Lisa was a witch and that they needed to destroy her in order to save their community. I mean, they found strange items in her house and devil machines, as they call it. Something I found funny was he's speaking to the mayor of Targoviste, and the mayor says, well, I've read a little bit about science myself. And when the bishop shoots him a look like, oh, so you want us to make room for you on this pyre too, the mayor backtracks and said, well, I've just looked. I mean, that's all. I mean, that's the power that this church, this bishop, and the archbishop have over this town. It's like one even sniff of heresy, and they are just locked on. It's terrible. In response to this, the bishop tells the mayor, the archbishop would prefer to keep life in Wallachia simple. Keeping life simple, as they put it, just gives the church, these rulers, these men, more power over the people of Wallachia. And they don't want to lose that. And that becomes increasingly clear throughout the rest of this season. Something I also love is Lisa's character. We get to spend so little time with her, but we get to learn a lot about her. I mean, she's dead within the first 10 minutes of this show. As she's being burned to death, she calls out to her husband, and she begs him to not take revenge. She begs him to spare them because they don't know what they're doing. They're simple-minded, they're being led astray. Don't punish the people for what these men are doing, okay? That would just take back all the 20 years that we have spent together. Because Drac and Lisa have been together at this point for 20 years. Which is just so sad. It's so sad. Ugh. Drac isn't there to hear her plea, And he, ever since marrying Lisa, she has been encouraging Drac to be more human, to travel like a human, to behave like a human. So he has been traveling and wasn't there when the church came and pulled Lisa from their house and burned the place to the ground. So he comes back to a smoldering house, and he's told by a neighbor that the church came and took Lisa away, and she's probably dead by now, which is just heartbreaking. Dracula spares this woman who told him the news because it's what Lisa would have wanted. But then he goes to Targoviste and appears as this being of fire and just terrifying. And he tells the people of Targoviste that you have taken away this one thing that justified your pathetic human race. This one seed of goodness you have destroyed. And now humanity deserves to be destroyed. Dracula appears and he berates them, he calls them out, he curses them out, and then he says, y'all have 1 year to make peace with your god, to leave Wallachia, and then I will be back, and I will be raining down some dark hellfire, scary beings on you. Then we see that Dracula and Lisa had a son. We meet him very briefly in this first episode, and he tells his father that this is not what Lisa would have wanted. She wouldn't have wanted for him to punish the innocent people of Wallachia for the actions of a few. And Drac says, there are no innocents anymore. Any one of them could have stood up and said, no, we are not going to behave like animals anymore. During Lisa's burning, none of the townsfolk seemed bothered. They were borderline happy that she was dead. Maybe this is just me, but I'll never understand. I'll never understand how people can be so cruel and can think that. I'll never understand it. Cut to 1 year later. We are back in Targoviste. Everybody's partying and having a celebration. The Archbishop gets out in front of a crowd and says, look, 1 year ago the devil appeared and told us that we were going to die. But look, we're all still alive. Isn't that nifty? And the people are like, yeah, Archbishop, that's pretty friggin' nifty. He must have been a liar, 'cause don't we know the devil for a liar? Well, today, folks, the devil's the only one telling the truth. As soon as the sun sets, darkness comes, it starts raining blood and like bat fetuses. It's weird. And literally hellfire rains down upon the city and like explodes people, and then hell beasts crawl from the sky and like start eating people and tearing them apart. It's very bloody, very gut flying. The Archbishop gets his. Should have not killed Dracula's wife. This is the first time we get to see the Hell Beasts. I love their creature design. I think they're really cool. They're like bats, but not bats. They got teeth. They got arms. They're awesome. I love them. We then cut to a pub and the weirdest conversation that I have ever had the pleasure of encountering between these two lovely, lovely gentlemen. That's all I'm gonna say. They seem very wholesome. As this conversation is going on, there is a mysterious cloaked figure sitting in the back of the bar. Episode 2 resumes this fantastic, interesting, thought-provoking conversation. And we learn a little bit more about what the people of Wallachia are blaming their misfortune on. Not only on Dracula, but on the old noble families of the country, especially the Belmont family. Now, our little mysterious figure in the back looks like he's only interested in getting sauced and finding some place to sleep for the night. So as he's trying to refill his goblet, one of our lovely, lovely, interesting men from before happened to notice a family crest on his shirt. one that they were just talking about. It so happens. What a coincidence. And they start asking him, "So, stranger, Mr. Dressed all nice and fancy like you are somebody, what's that on your They say, "What's that on your chest?" "My shirt." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. What's on your shirt? That's a family crest." And our boy says, "Is it? Ah, well, that's weird. You know, it's just a shirt." After more haggling from these lovely gentlemen at the bar, our baby boy says, "Fine, okay. I'm Trevor Belmont from House Belmont. Can I please go now?" And no, these lovely, friendly, wholesome gentlemen are going to pummel this stranger just because they think that he is the cause of all their troubles, because the Belmonts dealt in black magic. The Belmonts dealt with monsters. And Sweet Trev says, "No, you stupid idiots. We fought monsters. Just because we were excommunicated doesn't mean it was the right decision. Doesn't mean, even though my family was banished, dejected, rejected, and all around hated by the people of Wallachia, that we're bad people." Okay, I'm not saying I'm not a bad person, but like, hey, give me a break. I've been through a lot. We get a huge bar fight scene, which honestly I really love. I think it's really funny. We get to see a little bit of Trevor and his moves. Trevor ends up winning the bar fight. He gets out of there and he travels to the next big city, which is Greshit. When he gets there, the sun is rising and he sees the little hell beasts leaving the city with some snacks for the road. And he is able to sneak into Greshit and look for some food and some shelter, some rest, because he's a tired boy. We also get a big overview of the wild party that was going on in Greshit the night before. I don't know about you, but these hellbeasts know how to have a good time. There are just pieces of people everywhere. Cradles are snatched. Guts. And the thing that made me laugh so much earlier that I had to stop recording for a minute. It's horrific and I shouldn't laugh at it. But this is graphic, so if you don't like it, skip to this time code. If you don't want to hear it, skip to this time code. But the hell beasts took some guts, some like intestines and stuff, and like wrapped them around the tent poles in the marketplace. And this guy has a broom and he's trying to get them off with the broom. I genuinely don't know why this is so funny to me, but every time I see that scene, and he's just like, "Well, gotta get Jerry off the roof." I mean, I don't know how else he'd get it down, but using a broom seems like... I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to get Jerry off the roof of his tent. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Trevor gets into town and he goes to the marketplace and he's talking to the locals a little bit, just trying to figure out what their game plan is, see if they have a defense force, because as disinterested as he pretends to be, it's kind of in his blood to help people and to fight monsters. So he's kind of poking around a little bit, seeing what's going on. And one of the people tells him, "Well, we don't have to worry about a defense force. We know what the problem is. We know why the monsters are attacking us every night. It's because we have this group of travelers in our city. And once we kill them and get rid of them, the problem will go away." Now, does this sound familiar? Does it sound like the same logic that got Lisa Tepesh burned at the stake? Maybe a little bit. This group of people is known as Speakers. They're this nomadic tribe of scholars that walk around collecting histories and passing them down through oral storytelling. They don't believe in writing things down, that's why they're called speakers, and it's rumored that some of them can use magic. So, the people of the town are blaming their troubles on the speakers, while the speakers themselves are just there to help, provide aid, medical attention, and support to the people of Greshit. Trevor still is just looking for a place to eat, somewhere to get a drink. He's just passing through, and then he sees an elderly speaker being escorted by a pair of priests. And Trevor gets to thinking, that doesn't look safe. But just keep walking. Just keep walking. Don't turn around. Don't help. Don't mind your own business. But in true protagonist fashion, he can't mind his own business. So when the priests pull a knife on the old man, Trevor intervenes and saves him. And it's so good. The fight choreography in this show is honestly really, really good. It's really intense. I love the fight choreography in this show. After the priests run off, because Trevor doesn't kill them, he just maims them. The speaker turns to Trevor and he goes, the violence wasn't necessary, but it was appreciated. Come over to my house and let's have some dinner. So Trevor goes with this speaker to where they've been living, and he tries to convince them to leave. The old man, though, is adamant. He's like, hey, look, we are here to support the people. And Trevor says, well, the people think that you're causing all their problems. Yes, I know it's because they're ignorant and they don't know any better, but you guys need to leave, or else they're going to kill you. The good people of Greshit don't care about your well-being. They only care about their own. Trevor's like, hey, the people brought this on themselves. And the speakers try to tell him that no, the good people of Wallachia didn't choose this fate. And Trevor repeats what Dracula said. Any one of them could have stood up. Any one of them could have said no, but they didn't. Still, the elderly speaker is not willing to back down. He's not willing to abandon the people. One of the other speakers pipes in and says, you may as well tell them the rest of it. The other reason that they're staying in Greshit is because one of their own has gone down into the bowels of the city looking for this mythical hero of speaker legend. And they haven't returned yet. The speakers are really, really worried about their friend, and they're unwilling to leave the city until they at least have their body. So Trevor, being the good boy he is, agrees to go down and get the body of this speaker so that they will leave. And the speakers say, you know what, okay, that's fair. Go find our friend and we'll leave. So Trevor takes his unhappy ass down to the catacombs of the city, where he finds a gigantic chamber, and there are stone statues everywhere, including a statue of a speaker with their hood up and, looking all scared. Then a pair of giant doors open, and there is a big old cyclops. And something that I really love is they classify the cyclops as a stone eye cyclops, and it's a cyclops where if it looks at you, or if it catches you in this beam shooting from its eye, then you'll turn to stone, and then that cyclops will feed off of your fear for eternity. Great concept. I love that monster design. I would like to see more of it, please. Yes, sir. Trevor is a badass, again, and kills the cyclops, which unfreezes his victims, not all of which are in one piece, but Trevor does manage to save the speaker when it unfreezes, and he sees that the speaker, who he was led to believe was a boy, is actually a girl. And this is where we get Sypha. Sypha is a queen! I love her. Okay, and we'll get more on why I love Sypha later. She's just a great compliment to Trevor, because they're both so snarky, but in such different ways. He's so blatantly snarky, and she's just so backbitingly snarky. I love Sypha. Trevor returns Sypha to the speakers, and he's like, okay, time for you to leave. The speakers invite Trevor to go with them, but he says, look, I don't want to get involved. I'm just gonna go find me some food and some drink. So he leaves the speakers and is immediately arrested by the church. The two priests that he fought earlier and a couple of buddies. So they haul him off to the church. Trevor tries to get out of it by saying, hey look, I'm an excommunicated person. Excommunicatee? I don't think I'm allowed back in the church. But hey, if I catch fire, that's on you. I wish I was making that up too. No, that's actually the line. It's like, if I walk into that church and catch fire or something, it's gonna be your fault. So Trevor goes to the church and he is greeted by a familiar face. To us anyway, not to him. We see that the bishop, who was responsible for Lisa's burning, has moved from Targoviste to Greshit, and now he is the bishop of Greshit. This man. He's the worst. He's the worst. I hate him. Matt Frewer gives him just the most condescending, holier than thou, me, big boy attitude. Ooh, he's so awful. The bishop tries to convince Trevor to leave Greshit so that they can take care of the speakers and end this reign of terror on their city. And Trevor is gobsmacked by this man's audacity, especially when he finds out that he was the bishop from Targoviste. And Trevor tries to get through to this guy until the more Trevor talks to him, Trevor looks at this man and he says, "You really believe it, don't you?" That for me was one of the best moments of this series, where he's looking at this man who cares so little about the actual lives of people and how he really believes that what he's doing is right. And it's just the depths that this kind of fanaticism and this kind of ego will lead to. You're willing to murder an old man and innocent children and a woman who did no wrong, who only wanted to help people, in the name of a God that is about peace and mercy. And you really think you're in the right, don't you? It was a fantastic moment. The acting was great. The writing is stellar. The way they handle this topic, and I'll talk more about it at the conclusion. I'll talk more about how religion really seeps through this world. It's handled incredibly well, and it's handled not delicately, but fairly. Trevor goes back to the speakers and sees that they probably honestly don't have time to leave the city, and the speakers still are like trying to see the good in the people of Greshit. And the elder says that if we're willing to tear each other apart on the behest of one man, then maybe Dracula's right and we don't deserve to live anymore. Trevor thankfully manages to get the speakers at least to hide and be safe while he confronts the mob of people who come to kill the speakers. We also have the priests, who are terrible, and they are leading this mob of the citizens, everybody who's left anyway, because Jerry's throwing up across a bunch of people's roofs. All the people who are left in Greshit anyway. Something else I noticed on this rewatch is that if Trevor doesn't have to kill somebody, he usually won't. There's a moment where he's confronted inside the speaker's house with like 5 or 6 priests, and he maims them and he seriously injures them, but he doesn't kill any of them. So that is something really interesting that I found about Trevor's character. He's not a John Wick style kill willy-nilly. He only kills the ones that he has to. Sypha comes to Trevor's aid when he gets cornered. We see that Sypha is a sorceress. She is incredibly powerful. She's so cool. I love her. Woman crush every Wednesday. I love Sypha. Trevor then challenges the priest that he's been fighting with the whole last 2 episodes to fight him one-on-one, or are you going to be a little pansy and hide behind the good people of Gresham that you have whipped into a frenzy against a group of people who are literally only here to help? And Trevor just sits there and calls this man out in front of the entire population of Gresham. And the guy tries to back down until Trevor says, "Oh, you beat up an old man this morning for just trying to help. You are going to have all of these people. You are going to turn them into murderers because you were scared." And so the people then turn on the priest and kill him real good. Like, he's super dead. Like, super duper dead. And the people, seeing that they have been led astray, turn to Trevor for guidance. Because here come the hell beasts. Trevor is doling out orders left and right. He is Thorin Oakenshield, so I shouldn't be surprised. I was a little surprised though. Fantastic. And with the use of Sypha's magic, Trevor's leadership, and the sheer number of people, they're able to defeat the beasts and save Greshet. At least for now. The victory is short-lived for Trevor and Sypha though, because there is an incredible explosion when the final beast dies, which sends Sypha and Trevor down, falling through caves and chasms and caverns and a bunch of other cuz into this secret area deep, deep below the city of Greshet. Now remember, earlier Sypha was down underneath the city looking for this mythical being of speaker legend. This being the Sleeping Soldier, a mythical savior who is going to be able to help them defeat Dracula. They stumble across a coffin in this chamber, and it opens, and this beautiful, beautiful man rises up out of it. The animation of this show is great, let me tell you. And Trevor is the first to notice that, hey, Sypha, baby girl, sweetheart, love of my life, this guy is not your sleeping soldier. This guy is a vampire, and he clearly has not been down here for 1,000 years. He's not what you're looking for, and I'm gonna kill him. And the vampire looks at Trevor, this smug little boy, and says, "Do your best." We get another fantastic fight scene between this vampire and Trevor. Great, great action choreography. Really dynamic, really energetic. So good. I'm trying to avoid using the word fantastic because my mom always calls me out on it. Mom, I'm looking at you. The vampire ends up pinning Trevor, and he's lording over him like, "Hey, any last words?" And Trevor says, "Yes. Please, God, don't let this vampire's blood ruin my good tunic." And we see that Trevor was able to stick the vampire with his sword before, or like while he's laying there pinned down. And then Sypha, Queen Sypha, comes up behind the vampire with her speaker magic ready to flambe this boy. And she says, I will torch you before you ever get your fangs into my boyfriend's throat." And the vampire just kind of laughs. And he just gets up and he pulls himself off of Trevor's sword. And he straightens up and he's like, "Well, I like you too. Let's be buddies." And he tells them, "I am Adrian Tepesh. I am the son of Vlad Dracula. And I have been down here for about a year, recovering after my daddy tried to kill me when I tried to stop him." Because we saw at the very... Did I mention it? We saw at the very end of episode 1, somebody come up and challenge Dracula. It was Adrian. Now he is down here. He's part of the Scooby Gang now. So we've got Adrian, Sypha, and Trevor. We're gonna have a good time fighting Dracula together. The season ends with Adrian, Sypha, and Trevor coming together and heading off to fight Dracula. And that's the end of season 1 of Castlevania. Yes, there are only 4 episodes in this season. I think Netflix wasn't sure if it was going to like become a big thing, but it has 4 seasons in almost as many years. That's pretty freaking good. Let's talk a little bit more about how the church and religion played into this world. We see obviously from the start that the church has a lot of power over the people of Wallachia. Nobody stands up, nobody is willing to speak out when Lisa is burned at the stake, even though she's helped a lot of people in her community. We also see that the mere mention of anything outside of what the church deems okay is met with backlash and intimidation. When Trevor comes to Gresham and is speaking to people in the marketplace, a lot of them have the same mentality of, if we just do what the church tells us to do when and where, then everything will be all right. He meets another man, though, who warns him, be careful. The monsters come during the night, but the bishop's men come during the day. It really spoke to me that this person, this citizen of Gresham, sees these terrible monsters and the bishop's men in the same light. We also see the impact that the church can have on a person's ego. The bishop of Gresham, previously the bishop of Targovište, but the bishop is so convinced that he is in the right, that anything that goes against him also goes against God, be that a person, be that an idea, be that a book. Anything that goes against what the bishop deems appropriate, anything that threatens his power and his hold over these people is not of God, obviously, because he is of God. And in fact, he tells Trevor, as Trevor is leaving the church, that the way things are going, with Gresham being the last great city of Wallachia, pretty soon, he will be the church. Not just a member of it, not just a bishop of it, but he will be the church. And that ego is what makes some leaders so dangerous. Later, before the attack on Gresham begins, while Trevor is still making preparations, the first place that the Hell Beasts go is to the chapel. The bishop is there, and he hears the door open, and he just asks, have the speakers been dealt with? And he gets no response. And then he sees eyes coming out of the darkness, and it's this gigantic beast. And the bishop is shocked. He said, you can't be here in the house of God. How dare you come in here and defile this place? And the beast is just so calm and casual. And he just tells the bishop, your God isn't here. His love is not unconditional. The bishop tries to defend himself by saying that he has devoted his life's work to God. And the beast tells him, your life's work makes him puke. The bishop continues to try to defend himself, saying that the speakers are the real evil. And the beast laughs at him and says, you're lying in the house of God? No wonder he's abandoned you. This entire exchange between the bishop and this blue-eyed demon, I think he's referred to as, is so powerful to me because it goes back to the core of faith-based magic. But the faith that the bishop had was not truly in God. He had faith in himself and his own power. By doing evil, by persecuting other people, and by making it his mission to destroy life, he has driven away the very God that he claimed to serve. And now, the only people who love him are these beasts, who his own people equate him with. This beast, this blue-eyed demon, just waltzes up to him and says, I love you. Your God doesn't love you, but we do. So let me show you just how much. And he eats his ass, and it's so good. I wish it was more graphic. I wish we saw a little bit more of it, but it was still so good because it was just a period after that, his whole season of egotism and self-righteousness, and he goes out by getting his face munched off by a demon in an empty box, as the demon puts it. We see a real example of faith when Trevor is asking volunteers to help him prepare for the battle, and he calls out for a priest, a real one ordained by the church, and one of them comes forward, and even his dress is different from the ones that we have seen already, from the priest that we've been fighting the whole season. His dress is simple, and he just comes out of the back of the crowd like, hey, look, I'm a priest, let me help. So Trevor says, go fill some buckets with water. You know what to do with water, right? And the priest's like, I got you. So the priest blesses the water, makes it holy, and when it works against the demons, Trevor is genuinely surprised, and he's like, well, I guess that guy really was a priest. And this is such a great opposite to all of the church representation that we have seen so far. Because this one man was humble, was willing to help, not just to destroy. He was like, tell me what I can do to help. He used his faith and his power as a priest to actually help fight the darkness that was invading his town. It's such a small moment, but it was so good to me. The speakers also demonstrate an incredible amount of faith, not in a deity, but in people. They believe that if people will just listen to them, then if people will just listen to somebody other than the people who are telling them what to do, just open your minds and listen to other people, that they will be able to save the soul of Wallachia. When Trevor first meets the elder speaker, the speaker is talking to these two priests who were there to kill him, and one of the priests challenges the speaker, and he's like, are you talking back to me? And the speaker says, no, I'm talking to you. The speaker then goes on to say, will killing an old man make you less afraid? The amount of compassion that the speakers have for people who want nothing more than to destroy them is astounding. It's so... Again, I'll never understand how people can look at a group and hate them and fear them so much that they want to kill them. But the amount of compassion that the speakers have for the people of Gresham is incredibly inspiring, and I love the speakers. Alright guys, that's going to do it for Season 1 of Castlevania. It was a very long review. Thank you for sticking through to the end with me. I really appreciate it. I love this series. It's a bloody, gutsy, good time. It's not for everybody. In fact, the darker tone even got to me a little bit come Season 2, which is why I haven't watched 3 and 4 yet, but I will eventually, so again, no spoilers, I will cry. With all that said, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Until next time, bye guys!